Galactic Survey Log, Entry 4471. Recorded by Junior Analyst Vrek'tahl of the Interstellar Cartography Guild.so, let me tell you about the day I discovered that humans are either the bravest species in the galaxy, or the dumbest. Spoiler alert, I still have not figured out which one it is. The planet was designated as Class-9, but everyone in the guild called it Murder World. Seriously. That was the unofficial name we used in the break room, whispered over our fermented grain beverages while shuddering at the atmospheric readings. Class 9 lethal. That is not just dangerous. That is the kind of rating that makes seasoned explorers fake stomach illnesses and suddenly remember urgent appointments on the other side of the galaxy. For context, a Class 9 means that approximately 92% of known sentient species would die within the first planetary rotation. The gravity alone could crush a Velthorian's thorax like an overripe fruit. The atmospheric pressure would make a Klaxon's respiratory sacs explode. The native fauna consisted almost entirely of apex predators who viewed anything with a pulse as a potential snack, had marked it as uninhabitable. Filed it away. Forgot about it. Then the human showed up. His name was Marcus Webb, though I did not learn that until much later. When I first detected the unauthorized settlement signature on my scanner, I thought it was a malfunction. My 6 manipulator appendages froze over the control panel. My breathing spiracles clamped shut in disbelief. Someone had built a structure on Murder World. Not a crashed ship. Not an emergency beacon. An actual, intentional, permanent structure. I did what any reasonable survey analyst would do. I panicked, filed 17 emergency reports, and then got permission to investigate because apparently, I was the only one stupid enough to volunteer. My supervisor, a crusty old Pelian named Gormith, had laughed at me. Actually laughed. His translucent skin sacs had jiggled with amusement as he approved my request. 3 weeks later, I was descending through Class-9's turbulent atmosphere in a reinforced survey pod, praying to 16 different deities that my insurance premiums were up to date. The landing was rough. The planet seemed angry that I had arrived. Wind speeds that could strip paint off duralloy plating. Rain that was slightly acidic. Temperature fluctuations that would make a thermal regulator weep. I touched down about half a kilometer from the settlement signature, too terrified to get any closer without visual confirmation, activated my environmental suit, checked my plasma pistol, and stepped out onto literal Murder World. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Not the sulfuric rot I had expected, but something else. Something cooking. My olfactory sensors twitched in confusion. Was that bread? On a Class 9 death trap, I made my way through vegetation that seemed specifically designed to cause maximum discomfort. Thorns that could puncture military-grade armor. Vines that moved with disturbing intelligence. Insects the size of my head that buzzed past with mandibles that looked like they could bite through bone. Then I saw the farm. I stopped walking. My brain refused to process what my visual organs were reporting. There, in a clearing that had been carefully cultivated, were rows of crops. Actual agriculture. The soil had been tilled, irrigated, and organized with geometric precision. Some kind of grain swayed in the hostile wind. Tuberous vegetables poked up from carefully maintained beds. And in the distance, I could see structures. A dwelling. What appeared to be a forge, smoke rising from its chimney, on Murder World. Someone had built a farm on Murder World, stood there for what must have been 5 full minutes, just staring, before I heard the voice. You planning to stand there all day, or are you going to introduce yourself? I spun around so fast that I nearly fell over. My suit's servo motors whined in protest. The human was standing about 10 meters away, leaning casually against a fence post. He was tall by galactic standards, with brown skin covered in a thin layer of what I assumed was perspiration. Dark hair, cropped short. Arms that suggested significant physical labor. He wore simple clothing, some kind of woven fabric, and carried a tool that I recognized from historical databases as a primitive harvesting implement. A scythe. The human was holding a scythe. On a death world. Looking completely relaxed. I am Vrek'tahl, I managed to stammer through my translator. Galactic Survey Division. You are not supposed to be here. Marcus, and I would learn his name soon enough, grinned. Actually grinned. Really? Because I have been here for about 8 months, and nobody told me I needed permission. This planet is Class 9 lethal. I practically shrieked. My voice modulator probably made it sound more like a distressed whistle, but the emotion was clear. Huh. He scratched his chin thoughtfully. Is that bad? Is that bad? Is that bad? I wanted to vibrate into another dimension from sheer exasperation. Bad? I repeated. This planet has gravity that should be compressing your skeletal structure. The atmosphere contains trace toxins. The predator-to-prey ratio is catastrophically unbalanced. The weather patterns alone should have killed you 17 times over. Yes, IT is bad. He shrugged. Just shrugged. Like I had told him his shoes were untied, not that he was living on a planet that could kill him in approximately 400 different ways. Seems fine to me, he said. Bit rough at first, I will admit. Took me a few weeks to adjust to the gravity. And the air tastes kind of spicy, but you get used to it. As for the weather. He gestured at the sky, where storm clouds were gathering with ominous intent. I have seen worse summers in Texas. I did not know what a Texas was, and I was not sure I wanted to. The predators, I said weakly. What about the predators? His grin widened. Oh, you mean my neighbors? They are fine. Bit territorial at first, but we worked it out. Worked it out. He had worked it out with apex predators. I felt my consciousness beginning to slip away from pure shock, but I forced myself to remain functional. I need to see your settlement, I said, trying to sound official. I need to document this. I need to understand how you are still alive. Marcus nodded agreeably. Sure. Follow me. Watch out for the rippers, though. They like to hide in the tall grass. Rippers. He said it so casually, like he was warning me about garden pests, not predators that could disembowel a fully grown Klaxon warrior in under 3 seconds, walked toward his settlement, and I kept my plasma pistol charged and ready. The farm continued in all directions, somehow thriving in soil that should have been toxic. I saw irrigation systems built from local materials, cleverly designed to capture and filter rainwater. There were tool sheds, storage units, and even what looked like a small greenhouse. The forge was larger up close, constructed from local stone and some kind of heat-resistant clay. The chimney pumped out steady smoke, and through the open doorway, I could see metal implements hanging on the walls. He had built a forge. A functioning metallurgy operation. On Murder World. How? I asked, unable to contain myself. How did you do all this? Marcus paused at his front door, which was made from thick wood that I recognized as coming from the thorn trees surrounding the clearing. Hard work, mostly. Trial and error. I watched a lot of educational videos before I left Earth. Figured if I was going to homestead on a frontier world, I should probably know how to do basic manufacturing and agriculture. Frontier world. He thought this was a frontier world. I had seen actual frontier worlds. They were class 3, maybe class 4 at worst. This was not a frontier. This was suicide with extra steps. He pushed open the door and gestured for me to enter. Come on in. I just baked some bread this morning. You eat bread, right? I did, technically, though my species required certain enzymes to properly digest wheat-based products. But I was too stunned to mention this. I followed him inside. The interior was surprisingly comfortable. Rustic, certainly, but functional. Wooden furniture, obviously handcrafted. A stone fireplace with a cooking area. Shelves lined with preserved foods in glass containers. Books, actual physical books, stacked in neat piles. And in the corner, curled up on what appeared to be a cushioned bed made from woven fibers, were 3 of the largest, most terrifying creatures I had ever seen. I froze. My suit's threat assessment system went absolutely berserk, flashing red warnings across my visual display. Oh, right, Marcus said, noticing my paralysis. Let me introduce you. That is Bella, the big one with the stripes. The one with the dark fur is Duke. And the smallest one, that is Princess. They are harmless. Mostly. Harmless. The creatures that my database identified as Krellstalkers, apex predators with bite forces capable of crushing duralloy plating, were apparently harmless. Mostly. One of them, Princess I think, raised her massive head and looked at me with eyes that reflected the firelight like molten gold. She yawned, displaying teeth the length of my primary manipulator digits, then put her head back down and went back to sleep. Marcus walked over and scratched Duke behind what I assumed were auditory organs. The creature, easily 3 meters long and massing more than most shuttlecraft, made a sound that I can only describe as a rumbling purr. Found them when they were cubs, Marcus explained. Their mother had been killed by something even bigger. Can you imagine? I still have not seen whatever did that, and I am not sure I want to. Anyway, I figured they would die without help, so I raised them. Took some doing, but we are family now. Family. He had adopted 3 apex predators and called them family. I realized then, standing in that impossible home on that impossible planet with that impossible human, that the galaxy was a much stranger place than I had ever imagined. And that humans, those bizarre primates from the edge of explored space, were either going to save us all or get us all killed, possibly both. Marcus was cutting bread, completely oblivious to my existential crisis. So, he said cheerfully, what brings the Galactic survey out to my little corner of nowhere? I sat in a chair that Marcus had built from the bones of something that probably tried to eat him, drinking tea made from plants that were definitely toxic to 17 known species, watching 3 murder machines nap peacefully by the fireplace. My entire understanding of xenobiology, planetary classification, and basic survival instincts had shattered into tiny pieces over the last hour. The tea was actually quite good. This somehow made everything worse. So let me get this straight, I said, my translator working overtime to convey my utter bewilderment. You crashed here 8 months ago. Your ship was damaged beyond repair. You had minimal supplies. And instead of activating your emergency beacon and waiting for rescue like any sane being would do, you decided to build a farm. Marcus nodded, pouring himself more tea from a kettle that looked like it had been hammered out of salvaged ship parts. The beacon was busted in the crash. And honestly, by the time I got the solar panels working and had enough power to maybe fix it, I was already pretty settled in. Seemed like a shame to leave. A shame. To leave. Murder world. Besides, he continued, gesturing around his home with obvious pride, I had always wanted to try homesteading. Earth is too crowded these days, too regulated. Out here, I can do things my way. No zoning laws, no permits, no neighbors complaining about my forge noise at 3 in the morning. The forge, I said, latching onto something concrete before my sanity evaporated completely. You built a forge. With what knowledge? What training? He laughed, a sound that made Bella twitch one enormous ear in her sleep. Videos, mostly. My grandfather was a blacksmith, back before everything went digital and automated. I used to watch him work when I was a kid. Figured I remembered enough to improvise. Turns out, basic metallurgy is pretty universal. Heat metal, hit metal, make useful things from metal. That is an extremely simplified explanation of an incredibly complex process, I protested. Sure, but it works. I have made tools, nails, hinges, a pretty decent knife. He pulled said knife from his belt and showed it to me. The blade gleamed in the firelight, the edge sharp enough that I could see it from across the room. Not bad for someone working with local ore and a lot of guesswork, right? Not bad. The human had recreated pre-industrial metallurgy on a hostile alien world with nothing but childhood memories and educational videos, and he thought it was not bad. Princess chose that moment to stand up, stretching in a way that made every muscle in her considerable frame ripple beneath dark fur. She was easily 2.5 meters at the shoulder. Her paws were the size of my torso. She padded over to Marcus and bumped her head against his leg with enough force that I heard the impact, scratched behind her ears like she was some kind of domestic pet. Hey, girl. You hungry? Dinner is not for another hour, but I can get you a snack. She made a sound, something between a chirp and a growl, that my translator could not parse. Apparently, it meant yes, because Marcus walked over to a storage container and pulled out what looked like a massive slab of dried meat. Smoked ripper haunch, he explained, tossing it to Princess, who caught it mid-air with jaws that snapped shut like a hydraulic press. Takes about a week to cure properly, but it keeps for months. I hunt rippers twice a week, smoke whatever we do not eat fresh. Nothing goes to waste out here. You hunt rippers, I repeated flatly. The same rippers that are classified as extreme threat level predators. You hunt them. For food. Well, yeah. They're actually pretty tasty, kind of like venison but tougher. You have to slow cook the meat for hours, but it is worth it. High protein, low fat. Perfect for someone doing manual labor all day. He paused, considering. Also, they kept trying to eat my crops, so it was either hunt them or lose my entire harvest. 2 birds, 1 stone, you know? I did not know. My species had a saying that roughly translated to 1 problem, 1 solution, but it did not involve hunting creatures that could rip through armored plating. Duke and Bella had woken up now, probably smelling the food. They approached with surprising grace for creatures their size, and Marcus distributed more smoked meat with the casual ease of someone feeding pets. Deadly, massive, terrifying pets. How did you train them? I asked, morbid curiosity overcoming my fear. How did you domesticate apex predators? Marcus sat back down, and all 3 Krell stalkers settled around him like a living fortress. I did not, really. Domestication takes generations. What we have is more like a partnership. I fed them when they were starving cubs, protected them when they were vulnerable, taught them to hunt properly. In return, they watch my back, help guard the farm, and occasionally bring me kills they have made. It is a mutual benefit arrangement. They bring you kills, I said weakly. Oh yeah. Duke brought me a juvenile ripper last week. Just dropped it on the porch like a gift. Scared me half to death at first, but then I realized he was proud of himself. Wanted to contribute. So I butchered it, smoked most of it, and made sure to give him the best cuts. Positive reinforcement, you know? Positive reinforcement. He was using basic behavioral psychology on creatures that evolution had designed to be perfect killing machines, thought occurred to me, one that sent ice through my circulatory system despite the warm room. Marcus, what happens when they are fully grown? Krellstalkers can reach 5 meters in length and mass over 2 tons. They are solitary ambush hunters who defend territories spanning hundreds of square kilometers. What happens when their instincts override your partnership? He considered this, actually considered it, which somehow made me feel slightly better. At least he had thought about it. Honestly? I do not know. Maybe they will leave when they are ready. Maybe they will stay. Maybe one day one of them will decide I look like food and that will be the end of Marcus Webb, frontier farmer. He shrugged again, that infuriating human gesture of casual acceptance. But I do not think so. They had plenty of chances to kill me when they were younger and hungrier. Instead, they chose to stay. That has to mean something. It did mean something. It meant that humanity's apparent superpower was not strength or intelligence or technology. It was the absolutely insane ability to look at dangerous things and think, I could be friends with that. Your government, I said, trying to steer the conversation towards something that made sense. Earth's colonial administration. They have no idea you are here, do they? Probably not. My flight plan listed 3 different potential destinations. This planet was not one of them. I got knocked off course by some kind of solar flare, damaged my navigation systems, and ended up here by accident. By the time I realized where I was already committed to landing. And you never thought to try harder to fix your beacon. He smiled, a genuine expression of contentment that baffled me. Like I said, I was already settled in. This place, for all its dangers, is home now. I wake up when I want, work with my hands, eat food I grew or hunted myself. The air is clean, the water is pure once you filter it, and the view. He gestured toward a window where I could see the landscape beyond, painted in the orange and purple hues of the planet's setting sun. The view is amazing. Why would I leave? Because it is a Class 9 death world, I wanted to scream. Because every moment you spend here is statistically improbable survival. Because this is insane, but looking at him, sitting in his handmade chair surrounded by adopted predators in a home he built with his own hands, I realized that my arguments meant nothing. Humans operated on a different logic than the rest of the galaxy. They saw danger and potential in the same breath. They looked at a hostile universe and took it as a personal challenge. The guild will want to study you, I said finally. When I report this, and I have to report this, they will send scientists. Biologists, xenopsychologists, survival specialists. They will want to understand how you have managed to survive here. Will they try to make me leave? There was a hardness in his voice now, a warning. I do not know. Probably not. You are technically not violating any settlement laws because this planet is not claimed by any government. But they will come. That much is certain. Marcus was quiet for a moment, absently petting Bella's massive head. Will they bring trouble? I like my peace and quiet. Scientists are rarely trouble, I assured him. They will observe, document, ask endless questions, but they are not enforcement. No one is going to force you off your land. Good. The hardness faded. Because I would hate to have to defend my property. I am a farmer, not a fighter. But this is my home now, and I will protect it. I believed him. More than that, I believed he could do it. This human, who had tamed a death world through sheer stubborn determination, who had befriended apex predators, who had built a thriving homestead in a place where 92% of known species would die screaming. This human could probably defend his farm against whatever the galaxy threw at him. The sun had fully set now, and the temperature outside had dropped dramatically. I could hear the wind howling around the structure, but inside it was warm and secure. Marcus lit more candles, their glow joining the firelight. You should stay the night, he offered. Traveling in the dark here is a bad idea. Things come out at night that make rippers look friendly. You can head back to your ship in the morning when you can actually see what is trying to eat you. Logical advice. Terrifying implications. I agreed. Marcus prepared dinner, something he called stew, made from his crops and smoked ripper meat. It was surprisingly delicious. We ate together, human and alien, while 3 sleeping murder machines provided ambient heating. I settled into a guest bed that Marcus had apparently prepared just in case visitors ever showed up, which seemed optimistic to the point of delusion. I found myself thinking about the report I would have to write. How do you explain this to the Galactic Survey Division? How do you put into words that all our safety ratings, all our careful classifications, all our scientific certainty about what is possible and what is not, had been rendered meaningless by one human with a crashed ship and too much determination? I did not know. But I would try. Outside, something roared in the darkness. Something big and angry and hungry. Inside, Princess lifted her head, listened for a moment, then went back to sleep. She knew her human would keep her safe, and somehow, impossibly, he would, because that is what humans do. They survive. They adapt. They look at the universe's worst and build something beautiful anyway. They turn death worlds into homes, predators into family, and impossible situations into Tuesday afternoons. The galaxy was not ready for humanity. I was not sure it ever would be, but Marcus Webb, farmer and blacksmith of Murder World, did not care about ready. He had work to do in the morning.